Dear students, welcome back. In the previous session, we have discussed about unilateral stance and use of cane contralaterally. Now, in this session, we are going to discuss about hip joint pathology. Okay, so the very large active and passive forces crossing the joint make it susceptible to wear and tear of normal components and to failure of weakened components. Small changes in the biomechanics of the femur or the acetabulum can result in increases in passive forces above normal levels or in weakness of the dynamic joint stabilizers. So now we will see some of the common problems and the underlying mechanisms of all this pathology of hip. So now first we will see the femoroacetabular impingement. So this femoroacetabular impingement is described as the dysfunctional abutment of the proximal femur and the acetabulum. That means the covering of the acetabulum, we can say the fencing, we can call it as the outermost part of the peripheral part of the acetabulum is getting affected. So this result of such impingement causes pain, okay, can lead to progressive degenerative changes in the hip joint, specifically at the labrum. You can find such things. The causes of femoroacetabular impingement may be multifactorial, and also any deviations in the actual anatomy of the structure of the proximal hip joint, and these are the things thought to be the primary causes of impingement. And this femoroacetabular impingement can be classified into two types. And also if you see the etiology, it is having two origins. One is its own etiological as well as pathoanatomical characteristics, and these are of two types. One is cam impingement and pincer impingement. We see in the cam impingement is thought to originate from what is described as pistol grip deformity. So it is called as pistol grip deformity of the femoral head and neck. Okay, so the deformity is likened to a pistol grip in the femoral neck, fails to taper as the femoral head merges laterally into the femoral neck. So it is also the origin we can't is unknown, but the disease evolves with an asymptomatic slippage and resultant calcification of the proximal femoral epiphysis can be seen. How can you diagnose? Means radiographs taken from a lateral frog leg angle may identify a cam deformity in which the junction of the femoral head and neck becomes indistinguishable. Okay, so if you see here, the cam impingement as a result of an abnormal widening of the femoral neck. So this is an abnormal widening of the femoral neck. This leads to abutment of the anterior superior labrum and the articular cartilage of the acetabulum during flexion and abduction. So this is the thing happening in the cam impingement. So we can see some cystic changes and also a disorganization of the cartilaginous labral structures are also seen. Okay, now we will move on to the pincer impingement. This is also one type of femoroacetabular impingement. So it is quite opposite to the CAM, and it is caused by aberrations of the acetabulum. Okay, the patients presenting with pincer type impingement may demonstrate greater coverage or overhang. So over coverage we can call it as of the acetabulum on the femoral head due to excessive retroversion. So you can find this excessive covering. Okay, coverage of femoral head. This is called as excessive retroversion of the acetabulum, and a deeper acetabular fossa, normally called as coxa profunda. This excessive coverage of the femoral head causes a compression of the superior labrum. Between the acetabular rim and the femoral head and neck in abduction. So this is the thing happening. Okay. So if repetitive impingement of the labrum may result in ossification of the labrum, that may further worsen the over coverage of the femoral head. Okay, so these are all the things we can see in the pincer impingement. Okay, now we will move on to the next thing, that is arthrosis. Okay, and in this arthrosis, so here, so this is the common thing happened in the hip joint, and it is the most common painful condition of the hip is due to deterioration of the articular cartilage. Here you can find, this is the normal articular cartilage. Here you can find the worn cartilage. Okay, and to subsequent related changes in articular tissues also. Here we can see the narrow joint space and rough weight bearing surfaces we can see, because all these are caused due to wear and tear. Okay, so when a joint is having such kind of features, then it is known as osteoarthritis or degenerative arthritis. Okay, normally the prevalence rate we can see 10 to 15% we can see over 55 years of age, with approximately equal distribution both in men and women. Okay, so although trauma or malalignment such as a femoral anteversion may be associated with this occurrence, and 50% of the cases are considered to be idiopathic. The cause is unknown. Okay, the half of the cases of the hip joint arthrosis have no evident underlying pathology also. The changes may be due to subtle deviations which is present from birth, and some tissue changes during aging, and due to repetitive mechanical stress loading the body weight on the hip joint over a prolonged period, or to interactions of each of these factors leads to arthrosis. Okay, so the factors most closely associated with idiopathic hip joint arthrosis, which are caused due to increased age and increased weight to height ratio. Okay, so these are the some of the some of the features of arthrosis. Okay, and now we will move on to the next pathology of the hip joint, that is fracture of the hip joint. Normally it occurs to the neck of the femur. So we have seen the trabecular system where there is a zone of weakness. So that area is normally vulnerable to fractures. Okay, so now we will see, and here the weight bearing forces coming through the hip joint may cause deterioration to the articular cartilage. The bony components must also be sufficient strength to withstand the forces that are acting around and through the hip joint. Okay, so the vertical weight bearing forces that pass down through the superior margin of the acetabulum in both unilateral and bilateral stance act at some distance from ground reaction force up to the shaft of the femur. The result is the bending forces across the femoral neck. Okay, normally the trabecular systems are capable of resisting the bending forces, isn't it? So whatever the forces which are coming through weight, and these are the forces from the ground reaction forces, so which causes some bending force, and here we can have the compressive forces on this side, and all these forces are resisted by the trabecular system. Okay, yes. So normally these trabecular systems are capable of resisting the bending forces, but abnormal increases in the magnitude of the force or weakening of the bone can lead to bony failure. So the site of failure is likely to be in areas of thinner trabecular distribution, such as the so-called zone of weaknesses. Okay. And another thing we can see in related to the fracture, which leads to avascular necrosis. So that means if the neck of the femur is getting fractured, as we know that many arteries are related here, normally at the anterior inferior aspect, the femoral artery is related, and the head of the femur is supplied by this obturator nerve. All these will get affected during the femoral neck fracture, leading to avascular necrosis. Sometimes in such conditions it requires a replacement of the head of the femur with an artificial implant also. Okay, femoral neck fracture are also associated with mortality rate that may be as high as 20%. So these are the things related to the hip pathology. In the hip pathology, we can include the bony abnormalities of the femur also, that is coxa valga and coxa vara. Also we can include in this hip pathology. Normally coxa vara is having an advantage of improved hip joint stability, but we can include coxa valga in this hip pathology. Okay, so this is all about the hip joint pathology. Thank you.